Let's be honest, we all deserve a little love in our lives. But at what cost? Imagine this, a woman, taking her final breaths, ready to give everything for the man she loves. She promises to love him even after he leaves her in a pool of her own blood. A bit much, right? Well, it seems we're not the only ones who think so. The editor of the romance novel certainly agrees, explaining to the author how this story might come across as bizarre to her readers. The author, a woman named Amber, is questioned about her perspective on romance. She responds by saying it's all about accepting someone for who they are. But if accepting someone means being okay with them gouging your eyes out, then her fans are not on board with that narrative. This is clear from the success of her previous novel, which was pure romance. Her editor suggests adding a dash of that romantic flavor to her next book, hinting at the possibility of becoming a New York Times best-selling author. But Amber knows what works best for her and her readers. She's been penning thrillers for years now, and it's been a successful journey so far. However, her editor, tired of reiterating the same advice, suggests she attend a high school reunion. He thinks she could borrow some personality traits from her old friends' love lives for her next story. Once he's done with his piece, he bids Amber farewell, leaving her alone to reflect on the past. Amber remembers a particularly nasty high school encounter with Cecily, one of the so-called popular girls. The memory leaves a bitter taste. Cecily's slap could have sparked a riot, but Amber held her ground, leaving Cecily quaking in her boots. Fast forward to now, she wonders if Cecily will show up at the reunion. It's been years since the cafeteria showdown, and hopefully, Cecily's grown up a bit. As she pulls up to the venue, Amber takes a moment to steel herself before stepping into a whirlwind of catching up and small talk. Just as she's about to make her move, her phone buzzes with a notification. She's trending online, and not in a flattering way. An old self-publishing account from her teenage years has resurfaced, bringing with it her debut novel, Until Death Do Us Part. The online mockery fuels her determination, and she strides into the reunion, eyes glued to her phone as she attempts to take the story offline. Once inside, she keeps a low profile, half listening to the chatter around her, the whispers about her career. She sees some familiar faces and decides to join them. At the round table, the group grills her about her latest book, but Amber plays coy, not willing to spill any beans yet. Just then, a stunning woman approaches their table. Amber recognizes her instantly. Cecily. She hasn't changed much, still spewing venom with every word. Cecily tells Amber to smile more before launching into a new tirade of insults. But this time, Amber fights back, pointing out Cecily's overdone makeup and unchanged, cheap perfume. It's a satisfying moment, though it's cut short when another attendee tries to defuse the situation. Cecily, however, continues her verbal assault, and Amber decides it's time to leave. As she heads for the door, fuming over her decision to attend the reunion, she runs into another face from the past. Lucas. The high school heartthrob, the quiet and mysterious boy that every girl, except Amber, was crazy about. After high school, he too had become an author, and a successful one at that, outselling Amber's books. Seeing him now is like a punch to the gut. Without exchanging pleasantries, she sidesteps him and makes a beeline for her car, ready to let out all the pent-up emotions in privacy. Now in the safe cocoon of her car, Amber can't shake the sour taste of the reunion. It's like a bad rerun of a show she never liked in the first place, the same old characters playing out the same tired scenes. She's still the target of ridicule, and no one, not even time, has changed that. Her phone buzzes, it's her editor. She lets it go to voicemail, choosing instead to marinate in her thoughts and concerns about her career. A romance novel? Seriously? Given how things have been going for her lately, what on earth does she know about love? Lost in thought, Amber doesn't see the truck barreling towards her car until it's too late. When she comes to, she's surrounded by an unusual amount of cheer and celebration. Is this the afterlife? Before she can gather her thoughts, a vibrant girl with pink hair and bright brown eyes approaches her. The girl starts chatting away as if they'd been friends forever. But there's one thing off, she keeps calling Amber Julie. When Amber corrects her, the girl simply points to a high school diploma bearing the name Julie Clark. This is where things take a turn for the surreal. Julie Clark isn't just any name, it's the name of the lead character in Amber's debut novel, Until Death Do Us Part. Bizarre, right? Now faced with this unexpected twist, will Amber embrace her new life as Julie, or will she be forced to relive the cheesy storyline she once penned? Until Death Do Us Part was Amber's literary debut, a time when she could let her imagination run wild without the pressure of perfection or the restrictions of editorial mandates. The book told the tale of Julie Clark, a young woman whose life was the polar opposite to Amber's. Julie was a magnetic personality, universally loved and irresistibly drawn to a dashing, upper-class man named Oliver. But just when she thought she'd found her perfect match, she discovered a chilling truth: Oliver was a hobbyist assassin. This revelation shattered Julie's world. And now, in some bizarre twist of fate, Amber's living out this narrative? Out of all her stories, she's stuck in this one? Frustration bubbles up within her as she grapples with this strange reality. Is she even alive? What's going on? She floods the pink-haired girl with a torrent of questions, only to find her just as bewildered. So, Amber, now referred to as Julie Clark, decides to roll with it. If she's supposed to be living as Julie, then no one here would know Amber. She apologizes for her outburst, blaming it on post-graduation excitement, and reminds herself to go with the flow. As she's trying to regain her composure, the pink-haired girl points out Julie's family approaching. Her mother pulls her into a warm embrace, a connection Amber realizes she's been craving. In her original life, Julie's mom was always too busy, later passing away and leaving Julie under the care of an indifferent aunt and uncle. Now, this hug feels like a welcome change. Fast forward a few years, Julie is called to breakfast by Mrs. Clark. As she enters the room, the sight of a loving family strikes her. This isn't so bad. As she savors her breakfast, she reflects on how far she's come living Julie's life. Thankfully, she's yet to cross paths with Oliver, the psychopathic love interest, and hopes it stays that way. There's a lot she's unsure about, and plenty she's worried about. But one thing she's grateful for is the love she's experiencing from her new family and the freedom to express her feelings openly, a luxury she didn't have as Amber. Julie views this new life as an opportunity to finally live a bit and to enjoy life as she never could before. After a hearty breakfast, she steps outside ready to face the new school day. But before she proceeds, she needs to remind herself of a few things. Top of her list, avoid Oliver at all costs. In her book, Julie and Oliver's paths cross on the first day of college. Julie was late for class and noticed a baby bird fallen from its nest. She decided to play the Good Samaritan, only to slip while climbing down the tree. Enter Oliver, who conveniently catches her just in time. Looking back, the memory makes her cringe. What was she thinking when she wrote that scene? Now, her primary goal is to dodge any baby birds or nests that might cross her path. As she strides into the university building, the insistent meowing of a kitten stuck in a tree halts her. She tries to ignore it, but the kitten seems to amplify its plea every time she moves away. With no one else around to help, she finally relents and decides to climb the tree to rescue it. It's not a baby bird, so there's no harm, right? She scales the tree and reaches out to the kitten, only for it to jump off unassisted, leaving her surprised and alone in the tree. How ungrateful, all that effort for nothing. Focusing on getting down safely, she takes her time, determined not to mirror the cliched damsel in distress trope from countless romance novels. But as if on cue, she steps on a broken branch and slips. Just like in her book and those cheesy romances she used to mock, a handsome stranger swoops in to save her. She lands safely, immediately apologizing for her clumsiness and checking if he's okay. He assures her he's fine. But when she looks at him, her heart flutters in a way reminiscent of those romance novels she used to scoff at. His sandy hair, bright ocean eyes, and impeccable style take her breath away. Wait a minute, why does this all sound so familiar? The realization hits her like a ton of bricks. She's just met Oliver, the charming psychopath. The moment Julie realizes who she's chatting with, instinct kicks in, and she makes a beeline for the nearest exit. But Mother Nature has a cruel sense of humor, and her still throbbing ankle gives out, making her escape more of a comedic waddle. No surprise, Oliver catches up easily, offering to whisk her off to the infirmary bridal style, no less. Despite her protests and insistence that she's not as light as he claims, he just chuckles and assures her it's no bother. As they make their way to the infirmary, it hits her, she's truly living the life of her character, Jelly Clark. And now, her mission is clear: escape Oliver at all costs. Upon reaching the infirmary, she starts brainstorming strategies to drive him away. She needs to make Oliver detest her, so he'll leave her alone for good. Oliver attempts to play nurse, hunting around the room for first aid supplies. Seeing no one else available to help, he takes it upon himself to patch her up. This gives Jelly some time to plot. In her book, Jelly's cheerfulness and radiance are what make her irresistible, especially to Oliver. So to get him off her tail, she has to become the opposite of Jelly Clark. And who better to play that part than Amber herself? It's ironic how her own personality traits could potentially save her now. While Oliver is busy tending to her wounds, Jelly seizes the opportunity to throw him off guard. She thanks him for his help and asks if he wants something in return. Flustered, he insists he just wanted to ensure she was okay after her fall. But she's not backing down. She accuses him of being creepy rather than kind, snatches the bandage from his hands, and leaves him alone in the room. Walking out, she can't help but wonder if she was too harsh. But then again, after such an encounter, he'll surely keep his distance. The only worry is if her outburst might trigger Oliver's darker side. Pushing those thoughts aside, she decides to stick to her routine and steer clear of him. After classes, Jelly heads home, feeling drained. But before she can leave, a redhead named Danny bursts into the room, introducing himself and his friend, Oliver. They announce a welcome party for the freshmen later that night. As Oliver locks eyes with her and makes his way over, Jelly braces herself. He invites her to the party, assuring her it's okay to decline a lesson he learned from a great girl. Jelly sighs internally, realizing it won't be easy to shake him off. If he discovers she knows his dark secret, she's toast. As the party invitation circulates, the campus springs to life. Students everywhere are pairing up and making plans. Amidst this hustle, Jelly spots a brunette girl cornering a shy guy, asking him to tag along with her to the party. The guy seems uncomfortable, but doesn't voice it. Surprisingly, Jelly decides to intervene, not the new Jelly, but the old one. She accidentally bumps into the brunette on her way out. When the girl reacts, Jelly casually comments that she's in the way and advises her to back off from a guy who clearly isn't interested. The brunette is taken aback by this unexpected sass, but Jelly doesn't stop there. She turns to the shy guy, advising him to stand up for himself next time. With a confident strut, she exits, leaving everyone wondering who this bold girl is. Back home, Jelly breathes a sigh of relief, away from Oliver and the embarrassing reality she created in her book. In her novel, Jelly Clark attends the welcome party, gets harassed by a guy who won't take no for an answer, and is rescued by Oliver. Now, faced with actually living out this plot, she cringes and flops onto her bed. Determined to avoid the party, she fires up her laptop for some binge watching. But then, her younger brother Nathan messages her, begging her to bring his forgotten wallet to his workplace. Since it's nowhere near the party, she agrees. Later that night, she drops off the wallet at Friendly Mart, where Nathan works. As a thank you, he offers to treat her to anything in the store. She initially declines, but when he points out that she'd usually jump at a hot dog, she realizes she's been neglecting her own preferences while living as Jelly Clark. So, she accepts the hot dog and bids her brother goodbye, munching on her snack and reflecting on the love she's received from her new family. Walking back through the same route, she crosses paths with Danny, a senior from the university. To her horror, she realizes that right next to Friendly Mart is the venue of the dreaded welcome party. Frozen in fear, she stares at Danny, who invites her inside. Despite her protests about being busy, Danny insists, promising her a fun night of getting to know everyone. When she still refuses, he grabs her arm and drags her towards the party, just like the book. Different circumstances, same outcome. Jelly tries to shake him off, calling him a creep when he doesn't let go. But the word barely leaves her mouth before she regrets it. Seeing Danny's face darken, she knows she's crossed a line and immediately tries to run away. But he catches up with her, and the struggle resumes. Caught in a scene straight out of her novel, Jelly's first instinct is to call for help. But she clamps down on that thought. No way is she going to let Oliver swoop in for another rescue. So, she digs deep and fights back solo, eventually breaking free from Danny's grasp. She bolts, seeking a hiding place, her mind a whirlwind of panic. She doesn't realize how fast she's running until she crashes into something, or rather, someone. As she gathers herself, she looks up to find herself face to face with the guy who broke her fall. Embarrassment washes over her as she stammers out a half-formed apology. But when she takes a closer look, recognition dawns. It's her high school nemesis, Lucas. Except, it's not. The boy before her is Leo, not Lucas. She mentally kicks herself. In her book, she created a character named Leo, inspired by Lucas, just to make him suffer. Comparing the real-life Lucas and her fictional Leo, she realizes she nailed it. But here's the twist, Jelly and Leo never crossed paths in her novel. Yet, here they are, proving that her life is veering off script. The encounter with Leo nearly makes her forget why she was running in the first place. But hearing Danny's voice again jolts her back to reality. She quickly apologizes to Leo for the unintentional collision and tries to leave. But Leo stops her, curious about her rush. She blurts out about her run-in with Danny, and just as the words leave her mouth, Danny appears, hot on her trail. Thinking quick, Leo pulls her close, pretending to be lost in a passionate moment. Danny breezes past, awkwardly excusing himself. When the coast is clear, Leo releases her. Flustered, Jelly pushes him away, accusing him of being a creep. He tries to explain that he was just trying to help her hide from Danny. But that doesn't sit well with Jelly. She questions why he'd even bother. Leo admits he wanted to repay her for defending him at school earlier. Jelly muses aloud about how easy it was to win him over, leading to an awkward silence. A sudden noise startles her, causing her to instinctively seek refuge in Leo's arms. Realizing it's just a cat, she stammers out an apology. But Leo doesn't seem to mind. He holds her hands, promising to protect her if she's ever scared again. Before she can respond, he pulls her into a comforting hug, assuring her he's there for her. The whole situation feels surreal, finding solace in the arms of a guy who resembles Lucas. But she goes with it. When they part, Leo suggests they head to the party together. But Jelly declines, claiming tiredness, but secretly wanting to avoid both Danny and Oliver. Leo understands and offers to walk her home. Almost instinctively, Amber reaches out and takes his hand. The next day at school hits Jelly and her classmates like a freight train, an unanticipated pop quiz from their notoriously tough professor. Confident in her academic prowess, Jelly is sure she'll ace the quiz. After all, she was always top of her class in high school. But when the results come back, she's hit with a reality check. AD. She sits there, shell-shocked, questioning where her academic brilliance disappeared to. As she's lost in thought, Oliver sneaks up on her, apologizing for startling her. He takes a seat next to her, asking if she's feeling better after missing the welcome party due to her health. For a moment, she almost forgets her own lie, but recovers in time. She assures him she's fine, hoping that will be the end of it. But Oliver sticks around, offering to tutor her in statistics after noticing her struggle. She declines, suggesting he use his expertise to help someone else who would surely appreciate it more. With that, she walks away, praying he doesn't follow. Free from Oliver, Jelly heads to the hallway for a break, only to stumble upon two girls bullying another. The sight strikes a chord with her. She'd been the victim of bullies in high school too. As she watches, the bullies notice her and tell her to move along. But she can't just ignore the situation. Summoning her courage, she steps in, buying a soda from the vending machine nearby. Just as the bullies prepare to retaliate, Oliver arrives. He quickly defuses the situation, calling out the bullies and buying a soda for the victim. Jolly watches in admiration. She has to admit Oliver, playing the hero, looks impressive. He brushes off the praise, saying he just did what was right. But he doesn't share his own troubled past, and how he yearned for his mother's attention as a child. Snapped back to reality by the girl he rescued, Oliver apologizes for zoning out. After she thanks him and leaves, an awkward silence falls between him and Jolly. He breaks it by reoffering his tutoring help, leaving Jolly to contemplate her next move. "Alright, I'll keep that in mind," she says, brushing off his offer with a casualness she doesn't feel. As she walks away, a whirlwind of thoughts sweeps through her mind. This Oliver is so different from the one she penned down. Is it possible that he's not sticking to the script of her novel? And why wouldn't he? The plot has been veering off course, especially with the unexpected addition of Leo. Why did she even have to think about him now? As she strides away, lost in thought, Oliver watches her with an intensity that screams love. Could he be falling for her already? Fast forward to the next day, and Jolly's little adventure almost slips her mind until she crosses paths with the girl who was bullied. The girl, Grace, approaches her, offering to buy her a drink. Jolly accepts, and they decide to hang out. As they sit outside, Jolly picks up on Grace's familiar vibe, shy and nervous, much like herself back in high school. As they chat, Grace can't help but ask about Oliver. She mentions how he's usually reserved around girls, but seems to be quite smitten with Jolly. The mention of Oliver catches Jolly's attention. She sees this as an opportunity to learn more about him. And boy, does Grace deliver. She spills all the dirt on Oliver Lloyd, the heartthrob and genius of their university. He hails from a wealthy family, the owners of Lloyd & Company, a global beauty empire. But wealth isn't everything, Grace muses, sharing rumors of familial discord due to a marriage of convenience. Grace even shares a personal encounter, recalling how she had once seen young Oliver being dismissed by his own mother. It painted a picture of a lonely boy living in a grand mansion, yearning for affection. Grace's older sister, who was in the same year as Oliver, confirmed that he didn't have many friends. It was as if he'd built a wall around himself. Jolly is taken aback by the story. Even though she wrote his backstory, hearing it from someone else makes it feel more real and more tragic. Grace continues to gush about Oliver, fantasizing about melting his icy heart. She eventually apologizes for oversharing, but Jolly waves it off. She had asked for it, after all. As Jolly mulls over Grace's stories, she can't help but wonder if Oliver's loneliness could be the catalyst for his transformation into a psychopath in her novel. Jolly and Grace are just chilling on a bench when two girls pop up out of nowhere, waving leaflets in their faces. The first girl's all about her volleyball club, throwing in the bonus of being able to drool over cute boys on the court every day. But that's not Jolly's thing. Then, the second girl jumps in with the travel club pitch. No learning curve, just pure fun. That sounds more like it. Jolly recalls how she wrote Oliver into the volleyball club in her story. Back then, she thought volleyball-playing boys were cool. Heck, she still thinks they're hot. But given her current mission, to avoid Oliver, she opts for the travel club, dragging Grace along with her. The second girl practically does a happy dance as they shake on it. They set up their first meeting for next Friday. Jolly's pumped. Back in her old life, she never had enough friends to travel with, and after graduation, she never had the time. But now, she's got both. She's ready to live it up. Oliver be damned. Next scene, the volleyball club girl is hanging out with Danny and his buddies, including Oliver. She's apologizing for failing to recruit Jolly, and Danny's not happy. Oliver's curious why Danny's so invested in getting Jolly on the team, and one of the guys beats him to the punch with the question. Danny's answer stirs something in Oliver. He reveals his sleazy plan to corner Jolly in the club's storage room. His buddy even asks for a turn once Danny's done. Gross. Later that night, Danny's sleep is interrupted by a doorbell. He finds Oliver on his doorstep, holding up some cans of beer and suggesting they celebrate his recruitment efforts. Sleepy-eyed Danny invites him in, thinking it's just a friendly drink session. But Oliver has something else in mind. So, next Friday rolls around. Jolly's hustling through the school corridors, scanning faces as she looks for Grace. The travel club meeting is about to start and she doesn't want to be late. When she finally spots Grace, they exchange a quick "hey," and Jolly apologizes for cutting it close. Grace just laughs it off and they head to the meeting together. As they walk, Grace admits she's kind of nervous. Jolly gives her a reassuring smile and promises it'll be all good fun. When they step into the clubroom, guess who they see? Leo, just chilling on a chair, hands stuffed in his hoodie pockets. He's as surprised to see her as she is to see him, but he plays it cool. Jolly, though, can't help blurting out, "What are you doing here?" He tells her his big sis made him join, which prompts said sister to jump in defensively. She didn't force him, she insists. She just wanted her little brother to join her club. After clearing the air with Jolly, she gathers everyone and introduces herself as Jane Harrison, the club president. Then, it's down to business. The first task? Planning the most memorable trip on a budget. Everyone's buzzing with ideas: the beach, a lake. But Grace has an idea too. Her voice gets lost in the chatter, so Jolly jumps in, quieting everyone down. She nods at Grace, encouraging her to share her idea. Taking a deep breath, Grace suggests camping at nearby Mount Atlas to save on hotel costs. The room goes silent for a second, then erupts in applause. Mount Atlas it is. After that, Grace seems to come out of her shell more, laughing and chatting with the others until the meeting wraps up. As they're hanging around outside afterwards, Leo sidles up to Jolly and asks if they can have a little chat. So, Leo and Jolly sneak off to a quiet corner. She's curious about what he wants to talk about. The first thing out of his mouth is asking how she's doing. Seriously? He pulls her aside just to check up on her. There's definitely more to this guy than meets the eye. She humors him though, sharing her excitement about going camping for the first time. Leo listens patiently, then brings up something that's been bothering him. He mentions that he hasn't seen her since the welcome party and it's making him anxious. She's about to joke about him being overly dramatic when he drops a bombshell: Danny's missing. Wait, what? Danny's gone AWOL? And she's just hearing about it now? According to Leo, Danny's been MIA for a week. Rumor has it he transferred schools, but that doesn't sit right with Leo. Danny was a star player on the volleyball team, so why would he bounce without a word to anyone? As Leo talks, Jolly can feel her mood shifting. He notices, of course, and asks what's wrong. From their encounter at the welcome party, he figured she'd be relieved to hear Danny's gone. But it's clear she's not feeling too great about the news. He tries to comfort her, but she recoils, mumbling something about needing to go home. Leo's left standing there, wondering why she seems to dislike him so much. Meanwhile, Jolly's mind is racing as she heads home. Sure, Danny's a jerk, but his sudden disappearance doesn't feel right. In her novel, Oliver gets rid of Danny because of her fear. Could that be happening here? Did Oliver have something to do with Danny's disappearance? In his quaint little flower shop, Oliver hands off a beautiful bouquet to a sweet old lady. He sends along well wishes for her sick daughter, who he assumes is the recipient of the flowers. She thanks him and leaves, allowing Oliver to sink back into his own world. You see, Oliver has been on a lifelong quest for a certain feeling. A spark, a sense of purpose that makes life worth living. And he was determined to find it, come what may. As a kid, he'd spend hours in the garden, mesmerized by the beauty of flowers. One day, while hiding among the blooms, he overheard the maids whispering about his mother. They spoke of her endless tears since his father's departure, and her spiraling insomnia and depression that left her incapable of noticing her own child. Hearing this, Oliver approached them, clutching a handful of flowers he'd picked for his mother. Startled, one of the maids directed him to his mother's room. He entered, offering up the flowers and pleading with his mother to stop crying. But instead of comforting her son, she lashed out at him, blaming him for all her misfortunes. To her, becoming a mother was the worst decision she'd ever made. Oliver realized then that the feeling he was searching for wasn't at home. And it wasn't at school either. In the next scene, we see Oliver sitting alone in class, watching two girls fuss over their pet hamster as it performs tricks in its cage. A boy comes in, complaining about the hamster's diet, before passing the feeding duties to Oliver. Despite the absurdity, Oliver agrees. There's something brewing in his mind. That evening, after the school is empty, he sneaks into the classroom. He reaches into the hamster's cage and gets a nasty scratch in return. The sight of his own blood triggers something inside him, and in a chilling turn of events, he grabs a pair of scissors and let's just say the hamster doesn't make it. And even when he's caught in the act, he doesn't stop. The next day, word of Oliver's incident trickles up to the principal's office. Mr. Lloyd, the bigwig he is, sends one of his trusted aides to clean up the mess. The principal agrees to sweep it under the rug, keeping the scandal hush-hush. After the meeting, one of the aides hands Oliver an envelope. It's from his dad, which is odd. Why didn't his dad just show up and talk to him himself? Instead, he gets a letter telling him to stop causing trouble, or at least be subtle about it because it's distracting his dad from work. Classic. Even after stirring up such a storm, Oliver still can't get the attention he craves. Later, his teacher finds him in the hallway looking a little peaky. She asks if he's okay, then launches into a lecture about his behavior. But amidst her scolding, Oliver picks up on something else, her kindness, her concern. It's unfamiliar but comforting. And just like that, he realizes what he's been searching for all along. Love. Fast forward to now, and Oliver's daydreaming again until one of his staff members snaps him back to reality. She says her goodbyes and heads out into the rain with her bow, like a scene straight out of a rom-com. As night falls, Oliver decides to call it a day and heads home. Once home, he gazes at the freshly cut flowers he handpicked. He wishes they were like a lover, they don't walk out on you, they can't say hurtful things. They love you until they wilt and die. He wonders if he'll ever find someone who matches him perfectly, a true love. And that's when he thinks of Jelly. Ever since they met, she made him feel different. If she knows the real him and still chooses to love him, then she must be the one. He places the flowers in a vase filled with water and carries it to his special room. He sets the flowers in front of a gallery of pictures and sends them kisses, admiring each one with love. The room is like a shrine, and his muse? None other than Jelly Clark. Returning to school, Jelly makes it her priority to uncover the truth about Danny's mysterious disappearance. She taps into the school's Wi-Fi and starts digging around online. But her search on the school website turns up zilch, no records of a transfer, nada. So she moves on to his social media profiles. Scrolling through his feed, it's clear his friends are also in the dark. They've been asking about him for over a week now. That's alarming. Her investigation leads her to a profile with the same last name as Danny's. It's Michelle Dew, Danny's older sister. Among her posts, Jelly finds one about a family gathering Danny apparently missed. More red flags. It's weird that everyone's missing him and yet no one seems worried about his lack of response. Just as she's piecing together this puzzle, a hand lands on her shoulder. Jelly nearly jumps out of her skin. Whirling around, she comes face to face with Leo. Seriously, why does he always sneak up on her? He needs to work on his people skills. Leo apologizes for startling her, explaining he just wanted to remind her about class. Realizing she may have overreacted, Jelly offers a quick apology before suggesting they head to class together. As they step outside, they're greeted by a downpour. Good thing they both brought umbrellas. Leo unfurls his plain black one while Jelly reveals her vibrant pink umbrella, a cherished gift from her mom. They make it to class just in time, leaving their umbrellas at the public stand. A latecomer dashes out of a nearby class, cursing his luck for not bringing an umbrella. Spotting the stand, he swipes the most unattractive one, Jelly's, and rushes off into the rain, bumping into Oliver on his way out. Oliver notices the umbrella but doesn't think much of it. When class ends, Jelly discovers her umbrella is missing. The loss stings, especially since she has a club meeting to attend and no way to get there without getting drenched. As she stands there, frustrated, a familiar voice asks what's wrong. She starts to snap at him but stops short when she recognizes the voice. It's Oliver. He mentions he saw her umbrella earlier, and as he speaks, something clicks. This situation, she's written about it in her novel. In her story, it was a stormy day, and Jelly couldn't find her umbrella. Oliver showed up like a hero in a rom-com, offering to share his umbrella. That rainy walk home marked the beginning of their love story, bringing them closer than they'd ever been. Could life be imitating art? The idea of sharing an umbrella with Oliver makes Jelly cringe. She shakes off the thought and starts scheming her escape plan. As her mind races, she overhears the professor chatting with his assistant about taking maternity leave. A light bulb goes off in Jelly's head. In her novel, she had concocted a plot where Oliver becomes Professor Robert's assistant. Now might be the perfect time to bring that storyline to life. Without missing a beat, she interrupts the professor's conversation, suggesting Oliver as his new assistant, citing his interest in teaching. Poor Oliver, caught off guard by this sudden proposal, reluctantly agrees. Jelly can't help but feel a little triumphant. Checking her watch, she realizes she's running late for her club meeting. With a quick wave to Oliver, she heads out into the rain. Despite the downpour, she's relieved her plan worked, even if it means getting soaked. She managed to tweak the plot just enough to avoid the dreaded umbrella sharing scenario with Oliver. She hopes her little plot twist won't come back to haunt her later. As she trudges through the rain toward the clubroom, she spots someone with an umbrella. It's Leo. She asks if she can share his umbrella, only to be told that heading to the clubroom isn't a good idea. Jelly is taken aback. She figures he probably finds her as annoying as Lucas did. Fine, she decides, she'll brave the rain alone. But before she can storm off, Leo stops her. He clarifies that he was only concerned about her getting sick from being out in the rain. He puts his hoodie over her head, assuring her he was just looking out for her. Jelly is surprised at his concern, her cheeks turning pink. To add fuel to the fire, Leo offers to walk her home. She's so taken aback, all she can do is whisper a hesitant yes. As they walk home together under the shared umbrella, Jelly's heart pounds in her chest. The sound of her heartbeat drowns out the patter of the rain on the ground. She's sharing an umbrella, all right, just not with Oliver. The previous night's chill fades, replaced by a sickly warm morning. Our heroine is tucked in bed, sneezing up a storm. Yep, she's caught a cold, just as she feared. The house feels eerily quiet with her folks and brother out on urgent errands. She snuggles deeper into her covers, grateful for one thing, she didn't end up going home with Oliver like in her novel. She grabs her phone from the bedside table, texting her buddy Grace about her unfortunate condition and asking if she could borrow her notes later. At school, Grace pulls out her phone to see a message from her friend. She promises to lend her notes and asks how she's feeling. Suddenly, she's interrupted by Oliver, who seems curious about the conversation. Surprised, she stammers until he asks about Jelly. Grace finally shares that Jelly is under the weather and has taken a sick day. He thanks her for the info and walks off, leaving Grace struggling for words. Later, Leo meets a classmate from his department, and they head to class together. On their way, Leo brushes past another student. As the guy turns to apologize, Leo looks at him closely. He's seen this face before. Ah, it's the umbrella thief. Oliver's face tightens at the realization, and his friend picks up on his change in mood. When asked, Oliver shrugs it off, saying he was just trying to place the guy's face. His friend fills him in, saying the guy's name is Paul, a notorious flirt from the bio department who's recently settled down with a serious girlfriend. Oliver nods, a small smile playing on his lips. It's always interesting to learn more about the people around him. Jelly, finally getting some much-needed rest, is interrupted by the constant buzzing of her phone. Squinting at the screen, she sees a message from Leo. He's done her part of the travel club project, allowing her to rest up. She's taken aback. How many times has he swooped in to save the day now? He's been nothing but kind to her, and yet she treats him coldly, all because he reminds her of Lucas. She makes a mental note to cut him some slack. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. She bolts downstairs, figuring it's Nathan. But to her surprise, when she swings the door open, it's Oliver standing there, greeting her with a warm smile. Before he can get another word in, Jolly bombards him with questions. He answers patiently, explaining that he heard about her illness and wanted to check on her. He'd even asked the school admin for her address, and they happily obliged. He's also brought some notes and textbooks for her. She snatches the books from his hand, thanks him curtly, and suggests he should leave before he catches her cold. But as soon as the words are out, she's hit with a dizzy spell and falls into his arms. He catches her, asking where her room is. She guides him, and once they reach her room, he places her gently on the bed. He notices her skin is hot to touch and suggests calling a doctor, but she dismisses the idea, insisting she'll be fine. Oliver then proposes staying with her since she's home alone. She immediately rejects his offer, but he persists. Knowing she doesn't have the energy to argue, she reluctantly agrees. She can't help but wonder if she's just made the biggest mistake of her life. The story's just beginning. Want us to continue? Please comment Jolly below. Also don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, ciao.